Good morning, my name's Tom Johnson. I'm with Camprath Seed Company based in Manteca. We're a wholesale cover crop supplier to California, Oregon, Arizona, and various other places. We're part of the Native Seed umbrella. And what we're doing out here today is we have cover crop, 3 different cover crop types in a walnut orchard. This is the second year of a 3-year project. We put the same things on the same rows, second year in a row, partly so we can see what kind of differences we get between year to year biomass accumulation, year to year, what shows up better, what shows up worse, and mostly what the cover crop out here in this soil is going to be doing for us is hopefully increasing our water infiltration. We'll also do a little bit of soil biology work. In other words, improve the biology in the soil, make it better functioning. That can help with your water infiltration, your soil structure, your cycling of nutrients, your fertilizer efficiency, and even a certain amount to your irrigation efficiency. This is a 10-year-old walnut orchard, I believe, west of the town of Byron in Contra Costa County. We planted this cover crop plot, and then we also the grower then afterwards planted a similar mix to this one about the middle of November of last year. What we saw so far is when we did some biomass studies is that this year's production is less than last year's, and it could be due to several things: rainfall, temperature during the growing season, and or just because. We're working with a biological thing, so if you're expecting the same thing year after year, you're probably going to be disappointed. What we're standing in front of here today is basically a very diverse biomass mix, what used to be called a plow down mix more often than not. It's consisting of several large seeded legumes, a couple of small grains, and then some brassica in there as well. So we get a wide range of different root structures, plant structures, and what they bring to the whole thing. The mustards and the radish brought flowers early to help pollinators in the neighborhood. They also tend to have a good taproot system underneath them, which helps with the water infiltration. The small grains in here, there's rye grain and there's triticale in here. Rye grain is generally going to be very cold tolerant, salt tolerant, fairly short growing until late because it requires a cold treatment. The triticale in here is similar to the rye, maybe a little more winter active, grows a little bit more in the wintertime. The faba beans is a large seeded legume. Common vetch is a large seeded legume. Peas are a large seeded legume. So this one's going to be a net nitrogen producer if we can incorporate the tops. If we don't incorporate the tops, I'm not going to say that it will put as much nitrogen into the soil, but it will still put some in the soil. Management of something like this is generally going to be mow and till. If mow and till is not possible, mow and let it melt on the surface works. We have solid set sprinklers, which will help tremendously with that, so that we don't have very much in the way of residue to deal with at harvest time. Walnuts can handle a little more residue than almonds or other small seeds, small nuts, but you still don't want a whole lot of trash out there on the ground come fall. When we came out here to plant this fall, after the fall before, there wasn't anything left out here. They had mowed it, broke it up between irrigation and probably summer mowing for summer weed control. It had broken up to where there was nothing left. They lightly tilled the ground a little bit and we planted into that. Maybe one of those differences this year is that this was planted into fairly dry soil and didn't get very much rain until late December, versus the year before we planted and it rained enough to make everything germinate the next week. Next year, who knows what we're going to get. So, you never know on that type of thing. Right now, this is looking at right around 14 tons of green matter above ground. So that's a whole lot there basically that's going to have to break down, but that's green. So that's 75% moisture. So it'll break that down. The legumes in here will break down faster than the small grains and the brassica will, due to having that extra nitrogen in their top growth. And we've dug up a bunch of roots. We'll look at those in a little bit. Legumes fix atmospheric nitrogen through a symbiotic relationship with a soil-borne bacteria called Rhizobium. We didn't put any Rhizobium inoculant on, but these guys have all got lots of extra nodules, which indicates that they're storing extra nitrogen. They're not just making enough for themselves, they're making enough to leave behind in a slower breaking down pill or capsule on the roots. 2 weeks ago we were out here, the radishes have white flowers and they were in full bloom, covering everything, and the mustards were just starting to show up. 2 weeks later, the radishes have all but disappeared. They're all done. They're just making seed pods, and the mustard's basically in full bloom right now. Those kind of indicators right there can help with your termination determination, when you want to do it, when you need to do it. Termination is probably one of the biggest questions we have when it comes, besides what to plant. And it always comes down to remembering that the cover crop is a tool. You want it to do something, and if it's done its job, it's time to take it out, time to do something else with it. In this case, this is pretty much ripe for mowing it. Either lay on the surface as a mulch that lays there all summer and kind of suppresses the weeds underneath of it, or if they wanted to till it and felt they could get their ground back in shape, they could till it in as well. You don't want it to get much bigger, much more mature, because then you're starting to trade diesel and horsepower for the ability to turn it into little pieces, which will break down faster. There's some people out there that would take a roller crimper to this, and this is actually about the right stage for that as well. But that's an hour and a half dissertation all in and of itself. As you go across this field out here, there's a whole lot of different variations. There's low spots, high spots. Water doesn't infiltrate very well, so we get flooded spots. And you would see in a mix like this, where it's a little bit of everything here, and you go someplace where it's different water situation, and there's more of something and less of something else. And that's just an indicator of using a mix to cover your bases. So we planted out here this mix, a mustard only or brassica only mix, and a small winter triticale, small grain crop. And then we also will have basically what is going to grow out here without anything planted on it that we can take pictures of and discuss. Okay, on to the next.